idea.
We were going to put on a show for Richter. It was a gamble, but we'd come too far to give up on getting those files. Polina being next gave us time to get ready. We knew she'd hold her own.
Nice to see you again, Fräulein. Please. Please.
This is exactly what I imagined your weird little office would look like.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net's The Prototype. I am one of the soldiers today on the front lines for the Allies. I am Sergeant, I'll give myself that rank today, Mike the Birdman, but I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues as put in charge by the SOE. I think that's what it stands for. And I'm joined on my left by the guy in Kitchen, or the guy who is more or less the brains of the operation.
Brains of the operation. Yeah. Alex, I guess, am I a conscientious objector?
Yes, conscientious objector. And then joining me from literally next door in the lovely Rose City known as Guelph, Ontario, Canada, the guy who is actually ex-military, a guy who knows more about guns than was probably healthy.
True.
We have Liam Larson joining us here on the show today. So this is a special edition of The Prototype. This is our extended open coverage and discussion of Call of Duty Vanguard on the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. Review codes were provided to us from Activision, and big thanks to Parnaz for helping us out making this possible, and the entire team over there. However, as we record this on Wednesday, November 17th, some things have come to light in the media, which we will be discussing on the show next week as more information becomes available. Today, we're talking about the game, Call of Duty Vanguard, and that's it. The politics and everything that's going on, all the allegations, that will be addressed later. That is not the purpose of this topic today. So with that in mind, let's do the show we envisioned doing earlier in the week. So we're going to talk about Call of Duty Vanguard. To say this game has been divisive would be a bit of an understatement. Some people love it, some people don't, and we fall in a very unique place.
Yes, I would say if you're somebody who vehemently loves it, I question a lot about you as a person. Like, I don't know why or how anybody could say they love every aspect of this, but I have seen reviews that say that. So.
Yeah, it's been one of those experiences, because to kind of give those listeners out there the perspectives that we are dealing with today, allow me to kind of break it down for you. So I'm a Call of Duty veteran. I've been playing since 2007 with the original Modern Warfare, and I've covered each and every single release since then. However, I've became more involved in the competitive scene and the multiplayer scene really around 2014, when Sledgehammer Games put out Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, because in my opinion, it was Call of Duty mixed with Titanfall when it came to the vertical movement, and I really had a lot of fun with that. Alex comes at it from a very casual fan, basically big fan of the single player campaign, not a multiplayer guy.
I am the guy who plays it for the reasons people played it prior to Modern Warfare, in that I am a single player first person shooter guy who will pepper in some multiplayer, but only with friends. I am the guy who will never, ever in a million years play with random people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am that whatever percentage of a player base, that's me.
Yeah. And then Liam comes at it from a perspective of, you really enjoy the single player campaigns, really enjoy the multiplayer under the right circumstances, but you're a zombies player first and foremost, correct?
Yeah, well, that sort of really started up with Black Ops, because I played, like, huge fan of the World War II, the early Call of Duties, and Modern Warfare 2. Spent a lot of time playing. But the thing is, I played World at War, which I think that's the first game that had the zombies mode. I played it on the Wii. And
wow.
I played through the entire game and completed the campaign. I'm like, that's great. I completed the campaign. Now I can play zombies. And I found out the Wii version doesn't come with zombies.
Oh.
So I missed out on that one. But the other ones, I gave them a shot, but I was terrible at them. I was saying to you the other day, I enjoy the multiplayer, but I'm secretly terrible at it. That
Mhm.
most of the time it's just I get lucky. But with zombies, it's so relaxing. Especially that outbreak mode was just a little vacation. That was my zen thing to go there. I don't know what that says about me that I enjoy going through a virtual countryside and sniping zombies casually. But,
Now, just to give people a little bit of perspective, Liam, what is a little bit of your military history that you can share with us today?
okay, well, I mean, as a kid growing up, I watched all the World War II movies and even other stuff. Read the books, big into that kind of thing. Joined the Army Cadets, and when I was old enough, I found out I could do a co-op with the school and actually join the reserves. So I did that through school, did part of my basic training, and then joined the infantry. So I was in the reserve for a while before I decided to transfer and joined the military full time or regular force and joined the Navy. And I was an electrician for several years out there. Not quite as exciting as the infantry, but got to see the world.
So we actually have somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I've through basic training, you get firearms handling, assault rifles, light machine guns, general purpose machine guns. I never got close to a 50 cal, which I'm kind of sad about because they're really they're very interesting for snakeity, considering it's basically a World War I vintage weapon that's still in use.
And you know what? Here's how you know we're in Canada. One, the fact that you have to be in the military to even come near these guns, and two, that
For the most part,
that a military vet is using the word persnickety. that is a very old English / Canadian way of saying interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's some great videos online of people that haven't headspaced the barrel properly and setting it up. So the first round they fire, the whole barrel assembly just comes out of the gun.
Oh, God.
It's rather comical.
So, with all that in mind, folks, we are going to be talking about Call of Duty Vanguard on the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. Like I said, coming at it from these perspectives today. And I'll start so you guys can start kind of formulating thoughts. So, I'm the person who finished the campaign last, as I focus primarily my experience on multiplayer. Now, I was able to time out my experience with the multiplayer, with the campaign. It was definitely less than 6 hours. I would wager probably closer to 5 because I was pausing and looking at my phone occasionally. And that being said, you do play as 4 separate characters. You play as Arthur Kingsley, Polina, who's the Russian sniper, Wade, something or other, who's the American pilot in the Pacific, and then Lucas, who is an Australian soldier who's fighting in North Africa. And it's not to say that there aren't some fun moments in this, because there are. I'm not gonna lie. The opening sequence on the train is kind of cool, and there are some firefights that are interesting ideas. I just wish they were expanded upon. There were sections I really, really, really didn't like. And one of the conversations me and Alex had prior to me going through the campaign, and he'll expand upon his thoughts later, is how there isn't a lot of exploration. And I wasn't sure whether I wasn't sure how far Alex had really tried to explore. So I'm like, I'm going to see what I can do. And boy, howdy, can you not explore in this? I was so surprised. And there were sections where, unless you followed a very specific scripted event, things wouldn't trigger. I had one, I wouldn't call it a bug, but I might call it a bit of an oversight. It's in the last mission where you're about to assault the final guy's Nazi headquarters, and he's going to run away. And you have to clear an area in a town square with a sniper rifle. and I am killing soldiers left, right, and center. And I'm like, why isn't this triggering to the next event? And I had to hit my objectives button. Turns out I missed a sniper in a window, but I killed 40, 50 soldiers on the ground. I'd killed out all their supports. They weren't manning machine guns. They were dead in tanks. Literally one guy in a window was holding up progress. So I'm thinking that's a little bit stupid. I had another mission where I had a teleporting, officer who decided he wasn't happy here and he wanted to go to the Shadow Realm temporarily. That happened in North Africa. I had multiple problems in the missions in the Pacific where I was being detected where there's no way I should have been. And one phrase that Alex used, and I thought it was hyperbole at first, and then I saw it happen firsthand. Dog missiles.
I believe Liam coined the term dog missile.
Yeah, furry heat-seeking missiles of death. The dogs like that. As soon as that happened, I kind of let out a very disappointed sigh. I was just like, oh no, this is what this game is going to be like.
No, my thing was how a bayonet is more powerful than a grenade.
Yeah, no, the way the bayonet worked in the game was I don't know if that's like foreshadowing. It's like wait until you get to multiplayer and find out how bugged the melee attachments are.
Yeah, so that happened.
Yeah.
And there is also a flying mission where
oh geez.
See, I like the idea behind it because the mission that takes place during the Battle of Midway, where you and your pilot friend Mateo have to destroy some Japanese carriers, and you dive bomb them. And you have to pull up at the last second. Cool. The problem is, it feels like you're flying with a walrus on your back when you have to do actual dogfighting.
It's actually easier to land on like the Top Gun NES game than it is to try to pull up at the right time.
I found the planes easier to control in Far Cry 6 than I did here in Call of Duty. And
my experience with that.
Yeah, like it didn't feel good. But there's another mission. There's one mission that is tremendously well done, and I will sing its praises. And that's the Polina mission. And the Polina mission is the Battle of Stalingrad, where it was the Russians versus the Nazis, and it was a very, very long, protracted fight. And this felt where I would wonder if more development time was spent here first, and this is what the game was intended to be. And we'll talk about that when we get into the bads, but this is just my experience so far. So going through the campaign, I didn't have a lot of really wow moments. I had okay, that was kind of cool moments. I had a lot of really, and one moment I know that was supposed to be really emotional, and it didn't hit like it should. You're fighting with the Australian soldier, and one of his friends dies. And he must have died off camera, or he must have been behind me, or I didn't see it happen. All I hear is the aftermath, and you have to fight some tanks, and then you kill them, and then there's a cutscene in the end. And that sucked, because that was one of the few really likable characters in this game. And I think that's my experience with the single-player experience, is I liked the characters, but I didn't love anybody. Which is, I think, kind of unfortunate. Like, when you look at some of the other games, you knew, let's go back to Cold War. You knew Adler was an asshole, but he got the job done for the CIA. You knew Woods because you knew who this character was through the Black Ops kind of story, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, you had reason to connect with these characters. Here, the missions are so short because the campaign is so over so remarkably quickly. You get a chance to like them, but you don't love them. And I think that's a really bad disconnect, especially because this game released so close to Veterans Day, which is November 11th. And I always make it a point to buy the Call of Duty endowment pack because that goes to veterans. I'm a very big supporter of the armed services, because, Liam, for example, he's a good guy. And I believe, it's valuable, etc. But I just felt a disconnect because Liam...
considering that a lot of the marketing for this was about how they were trying to push the first, in quotes, great characters for a Call of Duty.
Yeah,
which it's like they were trying to erase the history of all the other characters that people actually liked, saying that they weren't good, and their solution were characters that were only half baked.
Yeah, I knew Soap, I knew McTavish, I knew Captain Price, I knew Gaz, I knew all these other great characters from the franchise, and the bad guys here were cookie cutter. I mean, honestly, the Interrogator's a better bad guy than the main Nazi, Freischlaut or whatever the fuck his name is.
Who looked a bit like he was supposed to be modeled after
Bob Odenkirk. I don't know. To me, he looked like Bob Odenkirk.
To me, he looked like Ray Fiennes in Schindler's List.
But yeah, it wasn't a good experience. And then when the credits rolled, it ties into other Call of Duty games, but only if you know what you're looking for. And it kind of took away from, this is supposed to be the first special operations unit, the first real commandos. And they're talking about Project Aether. They're talking about Project Nova 6. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know exactly what I mean. For those of you that don't, it kind of takes away from, to me, the World War II games, the main story should be more history than fanciful, in my opinion. So yeah, that's my experience with the single player campaign. We'll come back to me when we talk about the multiplayer experience. So Alex, let's go to you because you were the first of us to finish the single player campaign.
Okay. So we received our review copies, which again, we're thankful for, but we gotta give it its fair due. And I beat it after what should have probably been a 3-hour campaign based on, if you weren't getting killed for little things that don't make sense. It felt like there's a lot of stuff, the difficulty with the dogs and the bayonets and and certain other aspects feel like they were just piled on to be more difficult because they were trying to fill out what would have normally been a very short campaign. Like this campaign, if you take away some of those little annoyances, would be the length of most games tutorials.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could speedrun easy mode so quickly.
If it wasn't for a couple of things, especially with how difficult the opening mission is. And I'm not talking the prologue. I'm talking Kingsley's mission where you parachute in. Mm-hmm. I died about 20 times and having to start from the very beginning because of the way the checkpoint system was, where you're running through or trying to get away from the Nazis through the forest. I would occasionally, they're scripted. Everything is very scripted here. You take a step to a certain spot, and then an enemy will pop up in the exact same spot, except occasionally when they don't. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there is a pattern they're supposed to follow, and occasionally a dog would be there, or occasionally I would get stuck in the forest, and I mean stuck like in the geometry, and I couldn't move forward and get shot to death and have to start over again. and I got to the point where I'm like, it's trying to goat you into grabbing a gun and then shooting somebody. It was easier to avoid guns altogether and just get out of the forest.
Yeah, that was my experience too. I kept trying to get a gun, but I kept dying if I ran through the forest and knifed guys. Like there's a dude in the tree. When I got the gun there, it made sense. But if I got it before, insta death. But they allow you to do it anyway, which is weird.
Which almost seems like an oversight, or like it's. I don't think they were doing it to punish you. I think they just didn't think through their AI there very well. Anyway, you get through there, and where I had to start the game over 3 times and had to delete my save file because it wasn't working and it completely had glitched my game. And this is not a pre-release. This was after the game was already
first
out
patch,
retail. Yeah, was where in the second section of his part, which turns out is like a certain checkpoint I've got problems with the checkpoint system here anyway, regardless, where you'll have to restart the mission sometimes and it will erase your checkpoints, but it puts you back so far that you've got to like spend an hour getting to where you were. Anyway, it's the part where you're going up through the trenches and then you have to go beside the two what are they, tanks that have the tracks on them? What do they call
the half treads or whatever?
Half track or half tread, whatever it was.
Yeah, half track. Yeah.
And it wouldn't spawn an event. You're supposed to go up to them, and then you walk beside them, and they go up the road. For whatever reason, on the first playthrough, the first vehicle would get halfway up the road and just stop, and then they would tell me that I'm in their way. And then if I moved up a step or two further, instant death, because they shoot at you from all angles. And I mean, I get shot at from all angles. So like it's coded so you can't possibly move forward unless a very specific event triggers, and it would not trigger for me. I had to delete my save. I had to delete the game, reinstall the game. Thankfully, I have faster internet with no bandwidth caps. Start from scratch, then die a whole bunch of times at the beginning again, till the roll of the dice hit so that it was easy enough to get through. And this is with me reducing the difficulty to the easiest that it possibly could be. It just something didn't feel right. Getting to this point, and then it magically triggers and moves forward like nothing else went wrong. Until a couple times in the game where on PS5 it just decided to turn the game off and crash. And this is apparently an issue. This was an issue last year too, but it was cleared up pretty quickly where it would crash. And I attributed that to, hey, it's new system launch. There could be issues with them not realizing how SSDs work and yada yada. And there could be things with the background streaming. Mm-hmm. But and then so I was like, okay, but this they should have learned from, considering that this game was supposed to have come out last year, and then they did the reversal. And they went, wait, this game is not even close to being ready, but Call of Duty Cold War is closer. Let's do a flipperoo. So this had an extra year of development beyond what it should have, and the other one had a year less of development. And this was still in worse condition as far as this aspect goes with the single player. I was very surprised. Going through the missions, as far as the exploration, if you want to compare, and I mean, people say, oh, you shouldn't compare. It's apples to oranges, game to game. Well, no, if you want to compare the Call of Duties, at least, with Cold War, you could do a mission almost any way you wanted to. You could approach from different directions in the map. You could go left instead of right. You could sneak around if you wanted to do your mission. You didn't even have to kill most people for most things. Mm-hmm. You could get around. There were also very different pathways you could choose for different types of endings. There were also collectibles. There was finding the secrets, like the arcade machines, finding secret codes that you could then put into the computer that would unlock secrets and other things too. That I still think to this day that there are people trying to crack some of the random Easter eggs and codes that were put into the computers from last year that just haven't been discovered yet. The very interesting story last year with how the branching paths worked, and how if you especially with the mind control type stuff, if you play your cards right, you could have a really wild hallucinogenic adventure that was different than the mainstream path would try to make you take.
I accidentally got that achievement the first time I cleared Black Ops. When it was telling me to do stuff, I'm like, I wonder what happens if I do the opposite of what they said. Yeah, and as soon as I figured out it did something, like, oh yeah, I'm milking this for all it's worth.
And it gets mad at you, and when it's like turn left, you turn right, and depending on the order, if you sometimes obey them and then sometimes don't, it still changes how things happen. So there's multiple ways to do certain levels, multiple endings, multiple secrets that can only be found if you do things a certain way. It really, for a 6 to 7 hour single player campaign, turns it into what could be 20 hours of exploration and fun. And you could again go off the beaten path and find a weapon or this game is the most linear first person shooter I've played since like 2005 or 4.
Let's say, yeah, this one, it felt like a lot of player agency was missing, and how you were mentioning about super weapons and fun one-offs, you only get the flamethrower once.
You get two. You can find two weapons that are off the beaten path, and it's not even really off the beaten path. If you backtrack in Kingsley's mission slightly to one of the burning barns, you will find a slightly better machine gun.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that is it. You can't do anything else. And then in the North Africa mission, where you're running up, there's like the side of a broken down like wall castle type thing where they're shooting down at you from the towers. If you go under the tower and come up the backside of it, it's the only area that's open up to you that it won't friggin' kill you for going off the beaten path. That is where you find a it's a gun. It's like a double-barreled Tommy gun, or a double magazine Tommy gun, and that's it. That's the only other weapon you can get. That's not on the main path it tells you to take. If you go anywhere, well, I'm going to try going around to the left. Either you hit an invisible wall, is number one, which is like, oh man, what is this? 15 years ago, or more dramatically, you'll hit you're out of bounds, you have to return. Okay, I get that. That can happen if it doesn't want you to go beyond a certain area. But a well-designed game doesn't need to have an out of bounds area. Like, you shouldn't be advertising to the player, this is an open field you can go to where there's no fence. And then if you try to walk over to it, it says you're going out of the designated area, return or you die. That feels so 15 years ago. And the worst one is, if you go beyond, it's like, don't go up this area here, or it's like, watch out for the snipers in the tower. Okay, well, look, if I go to the right-hand side, there's a trench I can go up. I can probably sneak up behind them and shoot them because there's nothing telling me I can't, except that you take one step and you magically have the magic bullet that killed Kennedy shoot you in the head. Like, there are areas that if you walk into the wrong spot, it immediately kills you, and you get shot from all directions. And that, to me, screams a quality assurance issue where the team was like, oh yeah, we didn't account for that when a tester says, hey, I can go up here and do this, and now the game won't trigger the next event. Oh, well, we'll just code it so it kills him when he walks into the wrong spot.
See, I'm pretty sure there was a game that there was something similar to that you'd get insta-killed if you went into areas, and the reason that was happening was because going into those areas was actually crashing the game.
I'll bet you that's what's happening here.
The choice is, do you crash the game or do you have the player get insta-killed and wonder, hey, what happened?
So I'm encountering these things throughout the game. And like these are my issues with the single player, being a single player mostly player, right? Like, I am somebody looking forward to this. I am somebody who, if they took out the single player mode, which is what people have said for years, well, why don't they just make it multiplayer? Well, you have that with Warzone. But if they took it out, I would have almost no reason to ever buy the game. So I am that player segment where maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 10. I'm willing to bet it's about 10 to 15% of players that buy the game buy it because they want to play the single player as well, if not for their only reason. So that's a lot of revenue they'd have to take away. But it seems like single player was such an afterthought that like they're really pushing the characters and all this. But in reality, if you look, they're really pushing one character. They were pushing Polina because she's the only character that seemed to have a scripted game event that made sense, that she's the only one in all the characters that has a spot where you can just walk up to items and then click a button.
Interact with them. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so is this going to happen with everybody else? No. It almost feels like she was ripped from a different game and put into this, or they made her ran out of time and money, and because of the pandemic and whatever. Or then again, this game was in development since 2017. So whatever happened in the back end, which we can speculate on all we want, but whatever was going on within the development of this game, it looks like they made her missions first and then went, oh crap, we don't have the time or resources to make the rest of the characters interesting or have them be cool. So let's make them racist.
Yeah, that when Alex messaged me, it was fairly early in the morning,
It's like 1 in the
And-
morning, and I went, "Are you serious?"
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. So to give you folks a little bit of actually, Liam, why don't you give us the historical context of
Well,
this first?
can I just I'll just finish my last opinion on the single player first,
Okay,
if you don't mind. I did enjoy aspects of it, especially the Polina mission. I'm gonna catch flack for this. I didn't care for her voice acting, and I know that was a big deal that they pushed with her and Laura Bailey. It was a little bit melodramatic with her, a little bit too much with the Rocky and Bullwinkle sounding Russian accent. Maybe cast an actual Russian to voice her in the future, but regardless, finishing off that, it was a little anticlimactic. I thought there was going to be more missions after this. I don't know if they're going to add more, but tradition, Call of Duty tradition will say that they don't add any more single player missions after the fact. But it would be interesting to see if these characters do come back and if they do have more fleshed out version of it for another game in the future. A lot of single player type bugs. Enjoyed myself overall. Very big letdown compared to the single player of like I could go back and redo Cold War and probably still get a different experience than I got this time. And I know some people didn't care for Cold War that way. I found Cold War single player to be the best single player campaign they had done in years. So this good, not overly fantastic, great, but there were moments here I see people saying, "Oh, they're tackling the racism from the Nazis very well." That's been sort of done to death before. When I say racism, I mean stereotypes and characters that are very out of place and very jarring and should be catching a lot more flack than they think they are already because of other issues going on. And that's my final say is I enjoyed it, but it's a big letdown compared to last year.
Agreed. All right, so Liam, let's get your perspective on the single player and fill in whatever historical context where you can.
Okay, well, I guess like to start with, the SOE, the Special Operations Executive, was a real group, a real organization that was created by the British. It wasn't run by this Billy Butcher or whoever the narrator is in this. So that's it's. I kind of like to think about this game as a alternative history World War II. They've taken facts like World War II happened and the SOE was a thing and the Nazis were a thing, and they've taken it and they've sort of run with it. And that kind of helps me reconcile some of the problems and not get so butthurt over all the historical inaccuracies. So I think of this as an arcade game, so you don't really play it for historical accuracy. But it's certainly interesting to see Berlin portrayed in that way and to be able to do these missions in this environment, which, there's parts of it that are really pretty. They hit all the notes in Stalingrad. Some of the jungle missions there were moments, but it's a very hard game to like, because there were a lot of moments in the campaign for me that felt like a rail shooter. I mean, I had the difficulty set to regular, and I'd never really felt like I was in danger unless it was like a dog or a dude with a bayonet. Otherwise, it's, oh, somebody's shooting at me. Let me find a chest-high wall to hide behind, let my health magically regenerate, and then I'm going to go, shoot him and all his friends. And it was just lather, rinse, repeat in a different environment with vaguely, historical stuff happening around. And I mean, the cartoonish Nazi villainism with, all the talk around Arthur and whatnot. It's, like I said, it's a hard game to like.
Yeah, well, if you're saying the racism there, what I was referring to was the entire group of African American soldiers.
Oh yes, that too. Yeah, I haven't.
That's the racism part that made my jaw drop. And I'm not talking racism towards them. I'm talking for a game that's trying to tout itself as being one realistic and trying to be a historical shooter that's somewhat based in reality, and also trying to be socially conscious. They have a line of, "They better have grits in heaven, oh Lord."
Yeah, it's Like it's all done rather cartoonishly. That's
Why would a 19 like the main leader of, I forget the name of the leader of that, was it platoon or battalion, whatever they're in,
The 93rd.
they
Washington.
he's done well, and they're very heroic, all of them. Every character in his group sounds like a Chappelle Show stereotype, and we're talking hamming it up beyond like this. It almost feels like a Mad TV sketch of, it's like, what if we take the way people talk in stereotyped 1970s or 1980s street slang and way over the top African American stereotype, and we'll place them in this game where it seems out of place.
Yeah, there's so many anachronisms that creep into the game just through whatever language, or if they want to make a movie reference or something like that, which there are several moments in there where there were like overtly things. And the Stalingrad mission, there's a segment where you've got two German snipers in a building opposite you that are moving between windows. And if you watch them, there's a moment where one of the snipers makes a leap across a part of the building that's been completely blown out, leap across to get to the other side of the hallway, which is lifted right from enemy at the gates. But still haven't gone back to replay the mission to try and make that shot, though.
So what else were some of your experiences, Liam? Because I know, like you said, this is alternate World War history for you, but what were some things that really kind of stood out to you?
The flying section felt like they wanted it to be a lot grander than it was. And I mean, how they got the plane to fly properly in the Modern Warfare engine, I don't know. I mean, it took me a while to learn how to fly a helicopter, playing Modern Warfare and Warzone and all that, and I figured, well, the plane will probably be easy, but yeah, it doesn't handle very well. And I don't know if there's a setting somewhere in there and the horrible menus for this game, that so many of these default settings are put on that just make the game harder to play. But part of it too is you're not exactly flying a top of the line fighter. You're not flying a P-51 Mustang. You're flying a very large, kind of ungangly torpedo bomber, which it probably wouldn't handle all that well, but I don't think it would be that bad. And shooting down other planes was painful. I find a lot of first-person games that want to throw in the level that's like, hey, look, we threw in a flying level. It's like, hey, look, it's a sewer level. It just kind of happens in a lot of these, and it's very rarely ever done well.
Well, the fact that it's only, what I don't like about the single player here, like, again, I like a lot of aspects, I enjoyed my time, is when the single player campaign is as short as this is, it's only ever a sample of, here's 2 minutes of flying a plane, and we'll never do it again in the game.
Yeah.
I would like it if there was an introductory, and then if they had to do a second mission where it was more incorporated. But everything here felt like a sample of something that might come later eventually. And
yeah, everything was very brief. It felt very thin, that there was story that could have been fleshed out more. And I mean, the tiny glimmer of hope I see is that because they used Modern Warfare to build this, are we going to get something similar to covert ops that we had in Modern Warfare, that we can do a co-op online running missions and things against bots, and still getting XP and whatnot for it? I mean, the XP is not that important, but it'd just be nice to be able to play something that was expanding on the story, but also giving you a chance to have a fun experience with your buddies, and not have to worry about somebody wielding an uber powerful weapon that they either got from a blueprint or I really hope they could incorporate that into the game, but I really doubt that they'd bother, because they're going to be making their money on multiplayer and zombies and skins and whatnot.
So we've kind of talked about the single player campaign. We're going to talk about the multiplayer experience. Now, Alex, you didn't play much,
I,
if at all,
I'm
correct?
gonna go. I'm gonna go take a nap while you guys discuss the multiplayer, and I'll come back for zombies.
Okay. So to talk about the multiplayer experience, I need to give a little bit of background where I get a lot of my information and play experience from. So I watch a channel called Exclusive Ace, who's a very technically oriented COD YouTuber who does a lot of breakdowns of weapons, what's the new meta, what attachments work, basically attachment combinations, kind of loadouts, etc. I also watch Drifter, who does his annual kind of gun guides. This year he hasn't done anything really. But I typically trust him and Exclusive Ace. And I'm noticing a lot of problems this year, specifically with time to kill. And it's definitely something you could point at the devs for this one. There is an attachment which is on marksman rifles, I think, and definitely assault rifles, and it's called Vital. And it changes your multiplier that goes from your headshot and it applies to the upper chest. So in theory, you can get a 2-shot kill anywhere from the head to the upper chest with most assault rifles that have this particular perk, especially if you stack it with a few things that increase damage and range and accuracy. Basically, you can build lasers that'll 2-tap people. I am primarily a LMG user. I've run into problems. There's also one attachment which I actually got accused of hacking a few times because I use incendiary rounds because it does extra damage over time. But that mechanic is weirdly designed where basically it does apply more or less 10 extra damage, but only if I hit you and I don't do follow-up shots. So if I shoot you with another bullet, it resets that timer. So over 3 ticks, it'll do an extra 10 points of damage, which isn't enough to turn a firefight in your favor, but you may get someone if they run away from you, which is how I get a lot of kills after the fact. Attachment combinations are bugged. There is a wacky thing you can do with the bayonets right now where you can win entire matches by running around and stabbing people, which people have claimed is fun. I haven't done that yet because I'm not an asshole. Sledgehammer Games, I think, actually posted this on Twitter the other day where they're going to nerf shotguns into the ground, which sucks because shotguns are fun. But there's a reason why, people don't like shotguns. So my experience in multiplayer, I have played about 8 hours in mostly respawn modes, but I've played patrol, which is kind of like a moving hard point, would be a really good way to kind of think about it. One thing they have done this year, which is a little bit different, and I really, really like this, they give you options. Do you want to play a more tactical experience, which is like 6v6. There's another one I think which is called Assault, which is 8v8, and then Blitz, which is like a higher kind of player count.
Yeah, anything goes.
Yeah, basically anything goes. It's complete chaos. But I play primarily hardpoint and domination and patrol so I can rank up guns fast. And I just have more fun there. Team deathmatch occasionally, kill confirmed occasionally. There are a lot of maps, and I don't get a lot of repeat maps in the rotation. That's good. However, though, that being said, because I play fairly late at night and in the early afternoons, I find I get put into matches that are most often underway. And it's usually I'm on the losing team, which is just how the Call of Duty algorithm works. Sometimes I'm put in some tremendously lopsided matches, and I'm not 100% sure of this, but I think even if you join a match in progress, before it used to not count that as a loss stat, now it does. So I'm not sure if I'm remembering that correctly, but that's something that I have noticed.
I think it depends on the amount of time left in the match.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's been happening to me as well. And I know, like, one of my first MVP medals that I got was a weird one because I got put into a match in progress, and I think it was domination, and I wasn't playing the objective because they were already really behind. So I'm like, I'm just going to go and try and get kills, and somehow ended up with the highest elimination to death ratio in the entire match. It like you say, it's lopsided.
Yeah, I had a couple of matches like that too, where I was awarded most eliminations, and it was a hardpoint based one. And the main reason I did that, I wasn't playing the objective, is because I was trying to cut off angles so my guys could defend the hard point and I could get them not quite spawn trapping. For people who don't know what that means, it means where where players are going to spawn in and you can kind of predict how they're going to get there, and you can just watch the area and kill them as they come in. Obviously, it's not a good move. Don't be an asshole, but I don't consider it to be a terrible thing if you're guarding lanes of power. I think that's a really good idea. Let's talk about spawns, because oh boy,
yeah,
they are
like
busted.
The spawn camping and the spawn locking is really bad. I watched some videos online that they're, oh dear God. And I've had matches too where, I'll run one match and everything seems to go okay, and then the next match runs and we just get savaged by the other team, and it's don't know what happened.
There's also there's also another mechanic which I noticed, and it comes down to how your weapon behaves. And it's a mechanic that hasn't been used in COD in a number of years, where your reticle isn't precisely where your bullet's going to go.
Yeah,
it's
aim bloom.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Mm-hmm. That's not good, and I'd be very curious to know how this is going to affect the competitive scene, especially as Call of Duty League seasons start to ramp up. I think they start competing in the new year. I think they're already starting to train now. So yeah, that's going to be interesting when we start doing CDL events again. Mm-hmm. I've got a lot of worries about this, what attachments are going to be banned and whatnot. Also, one thing I have noticed, and I think this is a next generation console thing exclusively, there's a lot more people on mic this year in core modes than there ever have been in my experience. Because you and me, Liam, we played a lot of multiplayer in Cold War, and I played a fair chunk of Modern Warfare online as well, and I very rarely encountered mics. Here I'm encountering them a lot, and the community is colorful, I'll say that. Downright racist most times. And it's not good. And I've gone on the defensive for years, defending the COD community. But if I hear the N-word one more time, or a racial slur, or a homophobic slur, I would be a very, very rich man if I had a nickel for every time I heard that in the last week.
Yeah, I caught a little bit of that, and I turned the chat off.
Yep, I'm like,
if I'm going to be playing multiplayer with you guys, I'll turn the chat back on. But you know what? I don't want to have to hit that mute button every time, because it's Russian roulette. Are you going to get civilized people, or are you going to get screeching children, or obnoxious racist dickheads?
Yeah, like I did have a few matches though where there were some people saying, why aren't you guys playing the objective? And then once the mission completed and you do the voting screen, which is kind of a nice little touch this year. I think it runs a little too long, but it's nice. And the other team was like, hey guys, that was a really good game. That was really close. And if they saw somebody in the lobby they liked, they're like, hey, do you want to join up? And that was nice. I really thought that was something that I hadn't seen in a long, long time. Not since Advanced Warfare, also developed by Sledgehammer Games. One of the things that is happening right now is the meta is all over the place.
Oh, God.
Everybody's using STGs, which is the starter assault rifle. And if you put the right attachments on it, it's a laser.
Yeah.
There's
shot kills.
There is the running melee kill build, which is fun if you're a prick. And there isn't just a lot of weapon variety. I think I see there's a few more. I've seen more people use the MP40, which is the German SMG, which is nice. But again,
that is also a very bugged gun.
Yeah, like there needs to be a couple of weapon tuning patches for sure. I like the map rotations. That's nice. Like I said, I've only played the Japanese castle like maybe 3 times.
See, I've ended up getting stuck in that level several times and had it's gone both ways, but that level can be just like the 7th ring of hell, especially if you get it blitz. You get too many people on that map and they spawn trap you and you're going to have a bad time.
I found it was the map when you're on top of the hotel. Playing that on patrol is miserable because of the spawns.
Well imagine.
Other than that, though, progression seems weird because you have 2 different types of XP, and this is a big problem I have with this year. Now, normally guns in Call of Duty are tied similarly in level. To prestige, for example, you would get to level 55. That's commander or general or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And gun ranks would go about rank 55, 54. This year, I think they go to 70.
Yeah, the weapon levels go up to 70. So you can, I think somebody was working it out that it's basically 6 to 10 hours of grinding per weapon that's going to be required to get it to the maximum level. So you can build something that is festooned with nonsense, as Jonathan Ferguson pointed out. Which, you know, seeing him cradle that poor unmolested STG-44 at that video, you feel sad because you can go into the game and you can basically build what looks like a historically accurate model of it, but it's not going to be good. I mean, why can't they be like Ubisoft and give the cosmetic options? Because you could go in with your armor, you could select the weapons that had the best stats and say, well, I don't want it to look like that. I want it to look like this. Mm-hmm. So you can just go in and make it look normal. So you can put all this crazy stuff on it, but it doesn't look like just granted, some of the experimental weapons of the period did really look very cursed and strange, but whoo boy.
Yeah, when we get to your thoughts on this, Liam, I definitely want to hear your specifics of the guns thing, because Jonathan Ferguson, for those of you that don't know, runs a YouTube channel, and he often collaborates with, I want to say, GameSpot, and they do a focus on weapons with the Royal Armories over in Britain. And the term festooned with nonsense was very associated with this year's title. What they did to my poor Tommy gun makes me cry.
Oh, boy.
And yeah, there's just a lot of problems this year. And the final thing I'll mention is when it comes to the operator things, like you get different unlocks and you get a favored weapon. Like I'm using the German character Constance, and her favorite weapon is the MG42. That's an LMG, which is my jam. And I use that gun because it's what the smart gun was based on in Aliens. Because, you know, I'm fanboy. And I've almost got that gun completely leveled up. Her operator missions are taking me a long time to do. And I'm not sure I like the idea of operator missions, just how they're implemented here. For some reason in Cold War, they seemed a lot more, I don't know, just they seem better designed, I guess, would be it.
The operator missions and the challenges felt like they're more an integral part.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it is the way the menu and the user interface is laid out in the game, that everything feels kind of disjointed. That, yeah, it's like you've got one set of XP normally, and then you've got operator XP, and you're earning operator XP because that's going to grant you extra weapon XP for your favorite weapon.
Yeah, so it's very it's overly complex for something that should be remarkably simple. And then, sorry, final point on this one is the battle pass. You're in preseason right now, but most of the things you unlock are for Warzone and Cold War, which kind of sucks, but I see why, because I bought the battle pass for Cold War Season 6, but I'm only like 30 something levels into it, but because I'm playing Vanguard, it does count towards that, but whatever. So I guess, Liam, let's pass it to you. What were your experiences with multiplayer and any weapon stuff that you found particularly egregious?
Well, it's really hard to say what really stands out because there's such a kludge of stuff going on that screams at you, like a lot of the Volkssturmgewehr and the NZ weapon, which I think is based on, I think it's called a Charlton. They're basically designed to be home guard weapons that, just in case the home country was invaded, you'd still have machine guns, but they'd be very strange. Or in the case of the German gun, of course, it was designed for last ditch at the end of the war, very last ditch, and semi-automatic only. But it's just
is the experience a lot different from, let's say, last year's Cold War Online?
Well, what I liked about Cold War is they went back and it is based in the 80s, and the weapons are close enough to what we see today that when you take something from the 80s and you stick modern stuff on it, it looks sort of wrong, but not altogether wrong.
Well, and I guess
you can,
like depending on what country in like modern day, you could be fighting a country that's still using those weapons.
No,
right?
Yeah, probably.
Like especially like when you see like, why does every game have an AK-47? Because a lot of countries still use them, and they're still made, right?
Mm-hmm. No, and I mean, Cold War was great with the variety it came out with, because it was different stuff, but there were problems there too, because it's set in 84 and there's weapons in the game from like 88 or 86, or the QB I think was 96. But
so I mean, overall, like, are you enjoying yourself at least in the online, or is it a bit of a?
I find the grind is distracting me from having fun, and the fact that there's a lot of bug things that I can go and try and create a decent shotgun class and go in there and then discover that there's a glitch now with the assault shield, that you can get point blank and be shooting the person in the face and somehow it doesn't count damage. It's like the little bugs and that kind of take away from it, that I'll pop in, I'll play like a match or two, and then something will happen. I'll be like, nope, I'm out.
So these are things that can, be patched out probably a lot easier than some of the complaints we had about the single player. You can't just add more content or change the fundamentals there.
Like, you can hot fix these in literally a couple of hours. You would just have to give the companies notice, hey, we're patching this. Users will have to do an update, restart your console. It's that simple.
Yeah, it's like, look, it's a hard game to like, because both me and you, Mike, we've played COD since basically the start. I skipped out on a few of them, but it's fun to bond over it. But it's also, we want to bond and play multiplayer, but we also don't want to get annihilated. So that's where the grind comes in. And Cold War grind was different. This grind, it's definitely hitting differently. Not just the amount of levels, the different types of XP and everything. There's so much there that's distracting from like the gorgeous weapon models and things like that. It's great to see these rendered in such detail and everything, and then you see somebody like make a snub nose stockless Thompson submachine gun that makes you want to vomit or cry.
we made some weapons. Remember last year with Cold War, made some god awful neon, horrendous, hilarious weapons. And
Yeah,
nothing says humiliation like being killed by
A squirt gun.
a neon pink machine gun. It just says, "Hi, you're gonna die."
Yeah. It's
Everything looks like straight up Super Soaker.
Also, why do pistols need to go to level 60? That makes no sense. There was something me and Liam were doing yesterday, because just before we did this review, we were looking at the attachments for the 1911, which is a classic pistol still in use today.
very much so, yes.
Why the fuck is there a telescopic scope on a 1911?
Well,
Because every once in a while you need a 4-time scope so you can hit somebody, I don't know, 100 feet away if the bullet would even travel that far.
Yeah, this scope is like a sniper rifle scope. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they basically they've taken, you know, all the scopes that are specific for the rifles. There's no pistol specific scope, which I believe in Modern Warfare and Black Ops there were scopes that you only got them for pistols, because like pistol scopes are supposed to be slightly different than a rifle scope. Granted, you probably could bolt that thing on and shoot with it, but zeroing it would be really hard. But I guess that doesn't matter because of, you know, aim bloom. Your zeros all over the place in the game. And the thing that I was talking to Mike about that really kind of, you know, rubbed my rhubarb the wrong way is you can get the recoil booster off of the MG42, and you can put it on a bunch of different guns, but you can't put it on they just call it the air quotes machine pistol, but the Mauser machine pistol. So you can't like secretly make a Han Solo type blaster with that recoil booster on the end of it. But you can put all this other weird rifle based nonsense on the end of both the 1911 and the Mauser and the Luger. It's and I mean the Luger, they've got the carbine barrel. That's one of the attachments. As far as I know, you can't get a carbine stock on either the Luger or the Mauser, which, you know, they were usually equipped with. So you can make yourself a little carbine, which I'm pretty sure you could get that in Battlefield 1. There's little stuff that they don't add that could make it way more fun.
And that stuff might come down the line. I think we're probably rambling on. We should probably finish off with zombies, right, Mike?
Yeah, we're gonna move to zombies. So zombies this year is special, and this is why, because zombies was the experience that me, Liam, and Alex really bonded. I think that really brought our friendship to a different level, because we could play the zombies mode, and we didn't really play round-based modes except to level guns or to try out new kind of loadouts. We actually had tactics. We actually okay, guys, we're going to run to level 20 and then we'll do some outbreak for a couple of hours. Mm-hmm. So how that worked is, for those of you that don't know, Cold War had the typical round-based modes, but you also had something called Outbreak, where it was a huge open world like Verdansk or wherever, and here, go to these objective points. There are going to be zombies and other creatures on the map. Kill them, get points, upgrade your weapons, get perks, etc., etc. Here, there is one zombie map at launch, and it's called Daron Fang, and it's basically Stalingrad in the snow with things called covenants, which basically replace your perks or your ability to pack a punch and level and all that shit. And it's not as fun or immersive, because you would go to different portals and they might be like, hey, here's a transmit, where you basically, it's a version of Patrol, follow around a floating zombie head till it gets to an objective, defend it. Cool. Blitz, survive for 3 minutes. What other ones are there, Liam?
Harvest, which is, I mean, they out and out called the mode Harvest, which, you know, is like nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Go to this mode to farm XP, because I think the way it's set up is it's they want it, I guess, to be fast paced. You and a bunch of friends are together, and you go in, you complete the mission, you come back to the hub, you spend your points, you go back. But the difficulty ramps up so quickly and so differently than the other games that you're unprepared for the higher levels, and lo and behold, you don't have enough money to buy your upgrades. You're just stuck with the sacrificial hearts from the you get the sacrificial hearts for the Covenant from completing one of the missions. But Harvest, you can sit there, not let the mission end, kill the zombies, get the XP, get the money, and actually play it. But it's
You shouldn't have to use
shouldn't have
a
to do
deliberate
that.
exploit to just play the game.
Yeah, and that's one of our main problems, because when we started playing this, we have played 3 whole games of Zombies to Extraction, and we had 1 bugged Extraction. But we played a significantly, I'd say a good amount of hours here between all 3 of us. Me and Liam have done separate runs on our own, and the experience has moments of fun, but there's something that
bored. Like it's weird for all the stuff happening on the screen. I was bored.
Yeah,
the map never changes.
Mhm.
It's more claustrophobic. Enemies can spawn where you're standing.
Yeah, we saw that happen to you.
Yeah.
They hit you once, it has 50% of your health. They hit you twice, you're dead. You can shoot them 3 or 4. Like, the balance is so off.
Yeah,
and leveling your weapon is longer and more boring. There's number one, outside of this, like, it feels so stripped down and bare bones compared to playing like Outbreak. We would play Outbreak for 6 to 8 hours on one session.
Yeah.
And we, because we could do it at our own pace. It would get hard. We could have fun. We would laugh and talk about life and everything else involved. And that was sort of our wind down thing. There's no winding down here, but for as frenetic as it is, it's also boring because there's no variety.
Oh yeah, we haven't acknowledged the fact that it's not a pause for zombies.
Yeah. That's quote unquote coming in a future update. This was addressed on Twitter a little while ago. Like, we're going to add server side pause before season 1. That seems like a pretty big oversight to me.
Or how about this? The demons won't shut the fuck up.
Oh my God. You can't hear anything in this mode. And Alex hit it right on the point. So when you enter the mode, you're being taunted by some dude, which Liam will go into the kind of history of. And these demons you're supposedly working with also won't shut up. So the 3 of us are playing, and we can't coordinate tactics because they won't shut up.
I've turned the dialogue volume all the way down in the game.
It doesn't give you any useful info anyway.
No, it's like witty banter, or an attempt at witty banter that's not witty at all and ends up repeating ad nauseum.
Yeah, it's like, say goodbye to your tin soldiers. Auf Wiedersehen.
Yeah, especially at higher levels. Like, you've heard that 20, 30, 40, 50 times.
Within an hour.
Yeah, it's... The sound design for the weapons was so good, but everything else. Oof.
No, I should mention that this is across the board for all modes: single player, multiplayer, zombies. There's no secrets or collectibles.
Yeah, there is no intel to collect. There is no Easter egg that's been discovered, or I think it's been flat out acknowledged there is nothing in the game right now. Data miners have found files for a wonder weapon that hasn't been added in yet, so that'll be patched in presumably soon. Yeah. And there's been some new stuff, like there's new modes that have been added in, but they're not live yet. So Zombies mode is getting improved, but from the vast research and the conversation online, the Zombies community hates this. This sucks.
This is not us, going, oh, shitting on the game. It is everybody, where you'll get a divide when it comes to the multiplayer. Some people are loving it. Some people are meh. I don't think anybody hates the multiplayer. They might hate aspects. The single player campaign is, again, a flip of a coin. People either love it or people are really disappointed. Zombies is almost a universal hate.
Yeah, and I would say I strongly dislike most aspects of this game, but Zombies was particularly disappointing just because they spent a year with Black Ops trying out something new and getting it to work.
And I think it's still getting supported.
Yeah. And
Well, should we say also look at the battle passes? Almost all the rewards are for Warzone or for Black Ops.
yeah, you get a smattering of the Vanguard stuff to tease people, which, arguably, this game got an extra year of development. I don't suppose another month would have helped it. But
yeah, like I we don't really give final review score or number. Like, it's whether or not it's worth it. To me, if you're looking for a single player game, you're better off going with last year's game. If the whole package is enjoyable, but it feels like only 50% of the game was ready to go.
yeah, you're probably better off going back and playing the campaign from Battlefield V.
And there is a good game here. I just feel like it needs more updates before a lot of these issues can be addressed.
Yeah, like
and we didn't even talk about the stuttering, because they switched they switched from moving a 40 gig 4K texture pack that people used to download for the previous games. And the biggest complaint being the last game was like 220 gigs to install in a PS5. This game is now 40 gigs, but it's because all the high-end assets are streamed to the system through the cloud as you play. And if you turn that off, it lowers the game graphics to 1080p, and you're like, okay, whatever. If you're playing online, you don't care about that. The problem is there's hitching, and I'm talking in the single player where for 2 to 3 seconds the game would completely lock up while it was loading other assets. And this is on an internal SSD or the expansion SSD with gigabit wired internet with nothing else using it. So it's not a latency issue. It's not a bandwidth issue. There's something in their data streaming pipeline that isn't working. And people have been reporting on PlayStation specifically that it stutters even in multiplayer, which I didn't play.
I had some stutters. The mission I had the most stutters in was in the single player campaign, and it was in Polina's. Just like one thing that I could catch, and I don't know whether it was a bug or a streaming issue. When I'm in the department store, if I turn my head back and forth, it looked like there was a spotlight stuck on the side of my head. It was really weird. Eventually, once I got out of the department store, it disappeared.
And you're playing it on Xbox?
Yeah, on an Xbox Series X.
I've had some weird lighting effects as well, just stuff being too bright and blinding me.
Didn't you say that there was a contrast issue when you first played it, Mike? Was that fixed?
Yes, the colors were so blown out, and I thought, oh my God, is something wrong with my TV and receiver? So much so I contacted the manufacturer. No, there was just some weird HDR settings. Like, it looks fine now, but just something was wrong.
So, I mean, again, don't try to sound like we're ragging on it, but there are a lot of problems with this right now.
So let's talk about what we did like. I will say this. When the game does cinematic cutscenes, some of the characters look gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like, Polina looks cool. Kingsley looks awesome. Like, it looks
yes.
like someone had said you could make a Call of Duty animated movie and it would be cool if it was done like this. You know what? Totally agree. Some of the lighting looks awesome. To go back to Kingsley's mission, when you're going through the forest and you see the like kind of flashes in the distance, you see the fire burning, the guy hanging from the tree as the German soldier kills him. That looks cool. There's some genuinely cool moments here.
Polina's whole mission campaign was great. As was, I forget his name, Australian guy.
Lucas was awesome. I wanted more of his missions.
Those two, if you took those two together, those are infinitely replayable because they're fun script. Like, even the scripted moments are fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Zombies,
it could be fun if there were some things patched in.
It's right now, Harvest is fun if you're doing, like we said, if you're not doing the main mission and you're letting them swarm you, it can get fun and frenetic.
Yeah.
So there are aspects there that are fun. Again, I have no opinion of multiplayer because
it's not your jam.
Even if I was going to play, from the sounds of it, 90% of the players you played with were racist, misogynist, and all this. Like, why would you want to play online when that's what you hear?
Yeah,
and it's getting harder to find matches too in some places. I think people are having lots of long wait times.
So, I mean, and then you guys play Warzone, so I guess it's tied into there somehow. But like, as far as a fun experience, like I said, I think this game it has moments. It has the ability to be a fun experience, and I did have fun overall. But I think it's only about 50% ready to go.
Yeah, like I think my final rating for this is, as of today's record, there is a new map being added in, which is a classic called Shipment. I think there's a free play weekend coming up where you can play the game.
Give it a go.
Give it a go. Think. Yeah, play the free weekends. If you like zombies, wait for a free zombies weekend to pop up. I think the real tell for this game's going to be, what is it going to be like in season 1? What is the roadmap like? Also, pay attention to what the competitive community is saying. And I say competitive, not influencer. Competitive are the guys who do technical breakdowns.
And people that play the game for a living, not people that are YouTube and Twitch influencers who get paid to showcase the game.
Yeah, I mean, some of those guys did show off some pretty cool stuff, and there were some pretty cool influencer kits, but some of them, I don't know whether I trust their opinions on this one.
There are some, and this has been happening more lately, that some reviewers are not reviewers. Some reviewers are promoters more than they are reviewing it or giving a breakdown. We gave it a long, over hour breakdown of things that we like, things that we didn't like, things that we think could be better. I think if you're somebody who's really on the fence, you're like, I'm thinking about getting this game, but I'm really not sure. It may be I would say wait to Christmas and then get it when you can. Either there's a sale or by Christmas time, a lot of the technical issues we've been talking about will be patched out by then.
Yeah,
it just seems like more and more every year. It's not just Activision. It's not just Call of Duty. It seems like the last couple of years, games in general are launching a week or two before their patches are ready to go.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a psychosomatic thing where it's like, hey, we got to get the game out, and for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what arbitrary date you set as the date of release date, you just know you've got to patch it within 2 weeks after again.
Yeah, like I can imagine at the Sledgehammer offices right now and all the supporting dev teams, there's probably going to be a lot of sleepless nights between now and when season 1 launches.
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, I'm saying, folks, wait for patches. Pay attention to the YouTubers that you trust. And give this game a go once it's patched. There is fun to be had here. That is not undeniable. But there's a lot of problems, too, because I think there's a lot of missed potential here. Liam, let's let you have the final word on this.
Well, I think the problem with having a new Call of Duty come out every year is similar to the Cold War launch, where it came out and it wasn't quite ready. It had that some of the hiccups, and I really have to wonder if that releasing it a week early before the patch is to get a week of feedback from the players to kind of go into that patch and find stuff that people didn't find. But then it's also, the game has to get out and it has to get sold. And I think, trying out the free weekend will definitely, illuminate you as to what's going to be coming down the pipe. There is that potential there that you talked about, Alex. I can see this becoming a better game. Like if that covert ops things would come in, because you're playing as SOE soldiers.
And if they expanded zombies and somehow put something similar to Outbreak in, even if they were like, hey, that's coming after Christmas, I would say, zombie players, if you're not buying it right now, buy it for Christmas.
Yeah, I think
it's just we'll need to see a roadmap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's potential there, but there's also there's so much in there that just kind of sucks a little bit of the joy out of it. That they gotta get their ducks in a row and get things working.
Maybe instead, like I know you've got it's 4 main studios that work on these games, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think was this not supposed to be Raven's first big one and on their own, and then Sledgehammer came in. Whatever the backyard politics was for that, there's the 3 main cycle, right? It's 3 games that are cycled in each year, 3 main teams, and yes, so that gives them each a 3-year dev cycle. What if we gave each of the studios 4 years? And they cycle them, and maybe not every year. Maybe it's not every November or every October there's a game. Maybe it's every other year. And then we end up with some games that need
run 2 years.
Yeah, every 2 years there's a new game, and it cycles them in. Because what that would give them is certain games, let's say Treyarch or Infinity Ward, maybe some of them, they're working faster. They're like, hey, we can get ours out in 3, and then, or maybe we can get ours out in 4. And then another studio is like, hey, we're going to try something new with a new engine or really tweak this. Maybe they need 5 years. They could shuffle the games around a little more than having this rigid 3-year dev cycle, which means every year there's a new game.
There was something I saw that's popped up in the Call of Duty community, and it's been talked about a number of times. Make zombies its own game. Give it a narrative and then do a multiplayer mode. Don't just add it as a side thing. I think it would sell, because there was a game called Zombie Chronicles and it sold.
A $60 to $80 zombies game that comes out, and not that every Call of Duty has to have a zombies mode, but if every 4 years we got every 3 years, every 3 years we got a new zombies game. And there was a single player campaign that did the narrative through each, and then it also updated the graphics, updated the engine for the zombies mode. People would love to play zombies for 3 years on one platform where they're not having to switch the game every year.
Yeah, get Frank Darabont to write the campaign.
Yeah, and like there's so much potential here that I want to love it and I don't, but
you might in the future.
I might in the future, yeah.
And it's not the whole, oh, they're going to make it better next year. That whole joke. It's not that. We're saying this particular game is probably going to be having some major patches.
Yeah.
In the next 2 months.
Exactly. So anyway, folks, I hope you've enjoyed our coverage, our extended coverage of Call of Duty Call of Duty Vanguard. Once again, codes were provided to us by Activision for the purposes of this review. Alex is going to have me and Alex will be back on the main show this week. We will be covering more reviews and other topics such as it is. There's a lot more Future Imperfect coming up. Turd or Treasures, our holiday gift guide is rapidly approaching. So stay tuned for that. So I want to thank you both for kind of joining me today. So Alex, thank you so much. Liam, I welcome your military expertise. We're looking forward to having you on the show for Stargate Twig later on. And yeah. So from around the Southern Ontario region, from the city of Kitchener, we have been
Alex.
From next door,
Liam.
And I've been Mike the Birdman, saying, oh, maybe the next patch will get it.
Look, we can get out right now. Get ourselves on the first transport, be home in time for supper. Or we can end this. Hunt down Freisinger, bury the Riker for good. We might not make it out of Berlin, but neither will the Nazis. Whatever we do, though, we do it together.
Freisinger is not leaving Berlin.
Suppose me Lamingtons can wait.
Wait.
Hey, it's not every day you get a chance to kill a Fuhrer. Can't turn that shit down, right?
After you, Lady Nightingale.
Just so you know, I still haven't ruled out killing you all.